Well, good day everybody and welcome back to Survival NS. My name is Jose and today I'm going to show you how you can sleep warm and comfortably while winter camping without having to spend an obscene amount of money. There are many reasons why most people do not go winter camping, such as the cold, the wet, the comfort factor, and of course, money. Today, I'm going to show you how you can sleep warm and comfortably with the proper gear without having to break the bank to do so. Alright, just before we get started, I just want to say if you haven't hit that subscribe button down below, please hit the like and the subscribe button down below. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me to deliver more informative videos like this one to you folks out there. Okay, let's get started. First of all, when I say winter camping, most people tend to run away. Why? Well, I guess it's the comfort factor. They're afraid they're not going to be comfortable, they're not going to be warm, and it's going to be a most unpleasant trip. Well, and they also think it's going to be hugely expensive. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can do all of those things, and you're not going to have to break the bank to do it. When I mention winter camping or sleeping during a backpacking winter expedition, winter camping, most people inevitably go straight to the sleeping bag. So that's where we're going to start. Now, there's a lot to consider when purchasing a sleeping bag. It's not simply just running out to your outdoor store and talking to the salesperson there, who, by the way, in most cases, don't really know the ins and outs of what goes into a sleeping bag. So up until recently, bag manufacturers would simply stick their own temperature ratings on their bags based on in-house experimenting, no real-world testing. For instance, outdoors in harsh conditions or whatever. So the industry decided that they would try to standardize temperature ratings for sleeping bags. And the first one that came out was in 2004. It was the EN rating, which is the European norm. And then shortly after that came the ISO rating, which is the International Standards Organization ratings. And I'm not going to bore you with the details because there's plenty of them. All I'm going to say is, when you purchase a sleeping bag, check for those two ratings, the EN and the ISO. Basically, you're going to see one of three ratings when you go and purchase your bag. First, you're going to see the survival rating, which is basically the lower limit. So, for example, let's say this bag here has a survival rating of 40 below. What that means is you'll survive in the bag at 40 below temperatures, but you're going to have the worst night of sleep ever. But you will survive. Then you have your transition rating. What that is basically the intermediate rating, which means you're not going to be uncomfortable and you're not going to be warm. You're going to be so-so in your sleeping bag. Then, of course, you're going to get the comfort rating. And the comfort rating is where you're going to sleep cozy and warm in your sleeping bag. Now, if you go to purchase a sleeping bag and there's no rating on it, stay away. Don't even bother to think about purchasing that bag. One rating, keep in mind, if it's only one rating, that's your extreme limit. That's your survival rating if you only have the one rating on there. So if I was purchasing a sleeping bag, I would look for at least 2 or 3 ratings. So you get an idea of the transition rating, the extreme lower limit, and the comfort rating. Having explained all that, let's take this bag here for example. This bag here I had custom made for myself for my expedition on Denali. And it is rated to 40 below 0. That's the comfort rating, 40 below 0. However, that assumes that you're going to also have a proper sleeping pad underneath it with an R value as a minimum of 4. All right, so anything below 4 on an R rating on your sleeping pad diminishes the comfort rating on your sleeping bag. All right, so any sleeping bag you purchase, you can only take the temperature ratings at face value if you have a sleeping pad with an R value of at least 4. I myself would try to find one higher than 4. Also, I would never take a bag like this on a backpacking trip or a camping trip simply because it is extremely warm. Not only that, it's hugely expensive. You're going to lay down a pile of cash to purchase one of these bags. Now, I purchased this bag about 33 years ago, and it cost me nearly $1,000 Canadian. If I was to purchase this bag today, it would probably cost getting close to about $1,700 just for the bag alone. And that doesn't account for the other parts of your sleep system that you're also going to require to make your sleep that night comfortable and warm. All right, so we've all heard in the winter, people are always saying, layer up. And it makes sense. There's a reason for that. The idea is to have several pockets of air trapped, which are warmed up to keep your body warm during winter. Now, if that works for your clothing system, doesn't it make sense to employ the same system with your sleep system during winter camping? With that in mind, what you see here in front of me is some of the components that I use into my sleep system as a type of a layering system, much like you do with your clothing, except I do it with my sleep system. And they are not very expensive. They're just a few additives to your current sleeping bag that you can employ to improve the temperature rating of your sleeping bag. And you have to look no further than some of our militaries throughout the world who employ the sleep system by layering when they are deployed to Arctic regions, like the Canadian military and the US military. The first part of any winter sleep system is going to be your sleeping pad. And in some instances, the sleeping pad is probably the most important part of your sleeping system. The reason why I say that is because if it doesn't have a reasonable R value, it's not going to prevent the cold air from the ground seeping through your sleeping pad and robbing your body of heat. All right, so a few considerations when purchasing a sleeping pad are the length, the width, the thickness, the packability, and of course, the price. Okay, Let's take this one here, for instance. This one was the original Thermarest sleeping pad, which made its way onto the market about 30 some odd years ago, and it's touted as the original camping mattress. Now, as you can see, it's certainly not thick enough. You could probably feel the ground if you sleep on your side right through this pad. Another problem with this pad is the length. It is certainly not long enough to cover your entire body, foot to head. And of course, the R value. There's very little R value with this sleeping pad. Although in its day the price was fairly expensive, the packability wasn't too bad. But for winter camping, it simply won't do. All right, let's move on to the Ecotech Outdoor Sleeping Pad. This was advertised as a 4-season winter sleeping pad. I can tell you from using this pad, it is not a 4-season sleeping pad. As you can see, there's honeycomb-shaped ridges on here, which are excellent. However, if you notice in between, there's nothing in there to prevent the cold air from the ground coming through. And they've done some thermal imaging experiments, and it clearly shows the cold air coming through there. Although it's wide enough to accommodate some tossing and turning, and long enough to accommodate different sized lengths of bodies, it's not a winter sleeping pad. Moving on to my newest sleeping pad. This comes from a startup company called Gear Doctors, which I accidentally stumbled upon while surfing the net. And this sleeping pad comes with an R value of 5.2, which, if you remember, when I stated you could only take the face value of the temperature ratings on your sleeping bag if you have a sleeping pad with an R value of 4. This one comes in at 5.2, which is above what you normally would require. Now, you can see that it is long enough to accommodate my body. It is wide enough for myself, and it also comes with a pump sack. Now, the reason why I mention a pump sack is because you can pump up this sleeping pad with a pump sack, and you don't have to use your own breath to pump up any sleeping pad, simply because the moisture from your breath will get inserted into your sleeping pad, and it will crystallize because of the cold and can in fact damage the membrane of your sleeping pad. Not only that, it will reduce the R value of your sleeping pad. This sleeping pad also comes with a repair kit, which is essential for your sleeping pad. Whichever one you have, you should always have a repair kit, because you never know. Anything in your backpack or a little twig from the ground can easily puncture your sleeping pad, and then you're basically SOL. The other good thing about this sleeping pad is it comes in this bag. So check out the compactability of this sleeping pad. Not only that, it comes in at only 17 ounces. So 5.2 R rating, repair kit, packability, and last but not least, the price. Now, for a comparable R value of 5.2 from other companies such as Climate, Thermarest, and Nemo, which are probably the most wide-known companies out there for sleeping pads, this sleeping pad comes in at $126. Now, if you were to purchase a comparable sleeping pad with a 5.2 R rating from the companies I just mentioned, you're looking at between $300 and $400. So, yes, you can get equipment and gear for your winter camping at an economical price. You just have to search for it. Do some research, check out the reviews and the testimonials. That's my tip to you today. Just before I leave it at that, I just want to say that you can purchase sleeping pads from whatever company you wish to purchase them from, and they come in different lengths and widths, and of course thicknesses. Now, as you can see, the thickness of this pad combined with the R value make it an excellent winter pad. This comes in at 3.2 inches thick. Now compare that to the original Thermarest sleeping pad, and you can see there's just simply no comparison. One more piece of gear I want to mention that will certainly assist you in your winter experience is if you already have a good sleeping pad or you're looking to purchase one and you don't have a pump sack to go with your sleeping pad, there are aftermarket items you can purchase to help you in that area. One of them, of course, is purchasing a generic sleeping pad pump sack. Just be careful to ensure that the opening fits the opening in your pad. A lot of them do not fit. And a lot of them are generic, and some of them are specific to their own sleeping pads. Now, you can also purchase what is now on the market from different companies out there, and that is, of course, a mini micro pump. Check this puppy out. Now, this thing will certainly fill up your sleeping pad, no problem, and lickety-split. Very inexpensive. I believe I purchased this on Amazon at about $35. And it is USB rechargeable. So, if you also carry with you a power bank, you could charge this little item up as many times as you wish and it'll last your entire trip. Just be sure, if you're doing it in the winter, that you keep this thing in a warm place so that the battery in here does not freeze up. It also comes with different fittings to fit several different models and makes of sleeping pads. So again, just be sure when you purchase one of these items that the fittings will also fit your sleeping pad. Okay, one last thing before we move on to our next piece of gear. This sleeping pad I took out on a recent overnighter, and you can see that on my last video where the temperature with the wind chill got down to minus 28 degrees Celsius. And inside my tent, it was minus 15. So I tested it out, and I can reassure you this sleeping pad is excellent. It did its job. Let's touch on R value for just a brief moment. R value is basically the ability of your piece of gear to resist the cold air from the ground coming through and affecting your body heat. And the reason why R value is so important when winter camping in your sleeping pad is because when you jump into your sleeping bag, you'll notice that the insulation underneath you gets crushed, and there's basically nothing there to hold in the warm air. Above you on your chest, you'll notice that your sleeping bag is very fluffy and puffy, and it's holding that air in, which is good. But underneath you, it's not. You crushed it. That's why it is so important to have a high R value sleeping pad to prevent the cold air from coming through the ground, through your pad, and robbing your body warmth. That concludes part 1 of how to sleep warm and comfortably while winter camping without having to break your bank to do so. Look for part 2, which I shall be uploading shortly within the next few days. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do so down below. See you soon.